Welcome back to Lux. Today I explained a movie named The Platform Movie from 2019. In a jail known as the Vertical Self-Management Center, Goreng awakens in a substantial cell with the number 48 on its wall. There's only a bed and a sink for him to utilize, and an opening in the floor, which his fellow prisoner Trimagasi calls the pit. There are many floors like theirs, every one of them with 2 detainees utilizing counterfeit names appointed by the management. Consistently, food is brought down on a stage through the opening, and you have 2 minutes to eat however much as could be expected before it passes on to a lower floor. The lower you are, the less possibilities you have of eating anything. Toward the finish of every month, detainees are rearranged and shipped off various floors. At the point when Goreng sees the stage, interestingly, he chooses not to eat in light of the fact that he isn't ravenous, and he'd prefer leave nourishment for the lower levels. In the wake of eating however much he can, Trimagasi spits on the table, realizing individuals above most likely do likewise. Goreng chooses to save an apple for some other time. However, after the stage leaves, the cell starts to feel incredibly hot. It just so happens, keeping food is prohibited, so Goreng needs to dispose of the apple, or they'll consume to death. This makes Goreng contemplate the meeting he had prior to entering the spot, when he needed to sign a paper tolerating the reality he can't get out until the concurred period is finished. Each detainee has a decision to carry one thing with them, and Goreng decided to bring a duplicate of Kyode. Goreng came here deliberately. He'll burn through a half year in return for a certified recognition. The following day, Goreng won't eat again when the stage comes, and Trimagasi thinks floor 48 is squandered on him. Goreng asks Trimagasi for his story, and Trimagasi makes sense of everything. Began with a TV promotion. He purchased an unprecedented blade that he saw on television, yet a couple of days after the fact, they delivered another advertisement advancing a far better blade. This made him so enraged that he took the television and tossed it through the window, killing a person that was cruising by. Trimagasi was given a decision between a mental emergency clinic and the opening, so he is right here. The most reduced he's gone was 132. In this manner he realizes there are a bigger number of floors than that since he could see them underneath. No food arrives at the lower levels, and a month down there isn't that terrible. The issue is the point at which you get 2 lower levels in succession. Goreng is terrified of this chance and attempts to converse with individuals on different floors to request that they apportion their food, yet entirely he's overlooked. Trimagasi answers by pissing into the lower floor. He likewise uncovers that the thing he decided to carry with him is the blade he purchased from television. The following opportunity the stage stops by. Goreng at long last starts to eat. He likewise sees an individual from the upper levels fall through the opening, and Trimagasi says this is extremely normal. However, no one will make any kind of difference. Trimagasi educates Goreng regarding every one of the floors he's been on, and makes reference to they'll be together 1 month from now. Goreng understands that fellow prisoners are held together when they're rearranged. Lastly, comprehends Trimagasi ate his past fellow prisoner when he was on the lower floors. At the point when the stage drops by once more, Maharu is perched on it. Goreng stresses over her since he sees she's harmed. However, Trimagasi advises him to disregard her. Maharu descends the opening once per month to search for her missing kid. She likewise kills each fellow prisoner. She sets up to have more opportunities to be matched with her youngster the next month. The person they saw falling was presumably her casualty. Trimagasi then, at that point, makes sense of that not at all like her. He never killed anybody. He just ate the body that fell on his floor. At the point when the stage goes to a higher level, the detainees attempt to exploit Maharu. Goreng hollers at them to let her be, yet it isn't required. Maharu simply kills them and gets back to the stage. At the point when the month arrives at its end, the detainees are made at lights out time with gas and rearranged around. At the point when Goreng awakens, he finds himself attached to his bed on floor 171. Trimagasi makes sense of he tied Goreng up in light of the fact that he's more youthful and more grounded, so Trimagasi needs to safeguard himself. Shouting can be heard from different floors that show individuals responding to their new levels, and when the stage comes, there's not so much as a scrap left. Following 8 days, Trimagasi declares it's at last time for him to get some food. Overlooking Goreng's requests for benevolence, Trimagasi utilizes his blade to get some meat from Goreng's thigh. However, before he can eat it, the stage shows up carrying Maharu with it. Maharu recalls the amount Goreng stressed over her and bounces on Trimagasi, going after him with his own blade. Then, at that point, she liberates Goreng and gives him the blade, so he can utilize it to polish Trimagasi off. Goreng drops from that point forward, and he gets up later to wind up on the bed. Maharu has gauzed his leg with a piece of bed sheet, and she's currently eating Trimagasi. She carries a meat to Goreng, who acknowledges after some delay. She likewise presents to him some water prior to leaving on the stage without a word. Days pass and Trimagasi's body starts to spoil, allowing Goreng the opportunity to benefit from worms as well. Goreng likewise starts daydreaming, seeing Trimagasi's apparition judge him as he eats. Toward the month's end, Gas assumes control over the cell, and Goreng fantasies about being with a lady again. While Maharu watches, at the point when he awakens, he finds that the one licking him is a canine. To Goreng's shock, his new fellow prisoner is Imagiri, the lady that did his meeting when he elected to enter this jail. The canine is the thing she decided to carry with her, and they're presently on level 33. Goreng recollects the day of the meeting, and how Imagiri made frightening stops between questions. In the present, Imagiri makes sense of she chipped in as Goreng did, and that she didn't know individuals passed on here. Supposedly, there are 200 levels, and when Goreng makes sense of there isn't sufficient nourishment for every one individuals here, Imagiri calls attention to that how much food would be fine, assuming individuals just ate what they required, something that cultivates an unconstrained feeling of fortitude necessities to occur. However, Goreng considers the thought ludicrous. He contemplates whether change could be accomplished by the demise of a kid. However, Imagiri's certain that organization's strategy doesn't acknowledge under 16s. At the point when the stage brings them food, Imagiri just eats what she wants, and subsequent to giving some to her canine, she starts getting ready 2 proportions of food. When the stage arrives at the lower level, Imagiri attempts to prevail upon the detainees, advising them to eat the portions she arranged and make 2 something else for a higher level to pass on the message. Clearly she is totally disregarded, and Goreng calls attention to that the organization doesn't really believe fortitude should occur. Imagiri detests that Goreng thinks all organization is terrible, in light of the fact that she worked for them without issues. Yet Goreng answers that being a previous specialist gave her the honor of picking her fellow prisoner. Imagiri doesn't surrender and continues to attempt to proportion the food consistently. However, she keeps on being overlooked by the lower levels. After 14 days, Goreng at long last becomes weary of all her shouting and lets individuals know that on the off chance that they don't adhere to Imagiri's directions, he'll assuage himself on the food consistently, and they'll need to eat crap. The danger works and the detainees begin passing the messages to the lower levels. In a little while, the stage catches an oblivious Maharu on it. Goreng and Imagiri put her on a bed and deal with her, while the canine takes some food. When the stage leaves, the cell starts feeling very cold, and Goreng needs to pursue the canine to reclaim the food he took before they're killed for disrupting the guidelines. At night, Goreng passes on the bed to Maharu and rests on the floor, just to awaken to find the young ladies battling. It turns out Maharu killed the canine to eat him. The following day, Maharu leaves on the stage. Goreng educates Imagiri concerning Maharu's quest for her youngster. However, Imagiri makes sense of Maharu came alone 10 months prior. She was an entertainer with no family that elected to come, very much like Goreng. Imagiri sent individuals down here without knowing how awful it was, and she's been battling disease for a very long time. At the point when she found she lost that battle, she elected to come since she figured she could have an effect. Yet she doesn't mind any longer. On their keep-going day on floor 33, Goreng attempts to cause Imagiri to eat something, since they might not have food tomorrow. However, Imagiri is excessively discouraged to leave the bed. The following morning, Goreng awakens to find he's on floor 202. Importance: there are a larger number of levels than Imagiri knew about. Such disclosure was a lot for Imagiri to deal with and involved her bed sheets to end things for herself. Once more, at that point, Trimagasi's visualization shows up, contemplating whether Goreng will eat his new friend. This time he's joined by Imagiri and her canine, who demand he ought to eat her body. Goreng makes an honest effort to overlook their consistent meandering aimlessly, and he attempts to keep himself occupied with different things. He deceives his stomach by eating pages of his book, and he takes a plate shard to begin counting the days on the wall. Ultimately, the appetite turns out to be excessively, however, and Goreng at last starts benefiting from Imagiri, while Trimagasi guides him on where to cut. In a little while, the following mix comes and Goreng is satisfied to find he's on floor 6. The individual on the other bed is Maharu, who comes after him with a blade, yet this ends up being simply a fantasy. Goreng's new fellow prisoner is really Baharat, whose picked thing was a rope. Baharat is extremely invigorated in light of the fact that he wants to climb the entire way to the top from here, and he asks individuals on level 5 for help. The couple above prods him prior to tolerating to get the rope. Yet when Baharat begins climbing, The other detainee brings down her jeans and craps all over. Stunned and sickened, Bharat relinquishes the rope and falls. Goreng gets him without a moment to spare, however the rope is lost in debt. At the point when the stage comes, they need to eat while standing by listening to the detainees on level 5 get playful. Once more, over the long haul, the mental trips of Trimagasi and Imagiri show up. Trimagasi says Goreng is doing extraordinary in light of the fact that he just has another month to go, and Imagiri advises him that change never happens immediately. This motivates Goreng to consider an arrangement, and he asks Bharat for help. They ought to hop on the stage with anything weapon they can find and ensure individuals apportion the food so everybody can eat. Goreng crunched the numbers when he was on floor 202, and deciding when the stage takes to move, he thinks there are around 250 levels, which ought to be possible. Bharat acknowledges to cooperate, and they break a bed to utilize its bits of metal like weapons. Both of them hop on the stage and go to even out 7. Where Goreng guides out they shouldn't permit the detainees toward get anything. These individuals ate yesterday and will eat tomorrow without a doubt, so they ought to just beginning passing out food after level 50, which are individuals experiencing difficulty. Bharat delays on the grounds that these detainees are his friends that assisted him with scaling a little while previously. However, when the elderly person responds irately, Bharat sees Goreng's point and starts assisting him with warding everybody off. The pair continues onward down, while compromising individuals to keep the food immaculate. After a couple of additional floors, Bharat is stunned to run over Brambang, an old wise man that Bharat regards. Brambang supports what the young men are attempting to do, yet he calls attention to that the organization doesn't have an inner voice and won't mind assuming they succeed. However, maybe the specialists on level 0 will, so they need an image. Bharat and Goreng pick the panna cotta on the grounds that it's an exceptionally extravagant dish and will cause truly an impression in the event that it shows up immaculate to the base. The mission go on as they continue onward down, protecting the panna cotta while fending individuals off with dangers. When they arrive at level 50, Bharat and Goreng start passing out portions of food, and individuals are very appreciative. On level 97, they track down a debilitated elderly person and an intellectually handicapped kid. Goreng attempts to take care of the elderly person some soup, yet the kid tells them not to annoy, in light of the fact that he'll kill the man later in any case to benefit from him. A higher level just has a body on it, and Goreng surmises this is where Meheru awakened. The stage stops here since there aren't no living individuals, and that implies Goreng's computations were off base, and there are in excess of 250 stories. On the accompanying floor, they find 2 men going after Meheru. One of them has a blade and the other is immense and brawny. So when Goreng and Bharat hop in to help the young lady, safeguarding themselves is very hard. Bharat figures out how to get his person first, and afterward he assists Goreng with killing the large man. Yet tragically, it's past the point of no return for Meheru, who is now dead. Goreng needs to grieve her. However, Bharat hauls him back on the stage before it abandons them. Both of them continue onward down and giving out food to the detainees they see, albeit many floors just have dead bodies on them. In the end the stage stops at level 333, which is by all accounts the final remaining one. At first they believe it's unfilled, yet there's really somebody concealing under the bed. It's Molly, the missing youngster. Bharat and Goreng approach the youngster, and when they leave the stage, it begins going down once more. Goreng requests that Bharat toss the panna cotta into the opening, yet Bharat rejects. Amazingly, the room doesn't get hot or cold to rebuff them, and after bunches of dithering, Bharata gives the panna cotta to Molly. Them 3 stay on that floor, and Goreng continues to be spooky by Trimagasi, Imagiri, and presently Meheru too. Out of nowhere Bharat concurs with the phantoms. Let Goreng know that the young lady is the message, and when Goreng awakens, he finds Bharat passed on in light of his draining wounds. The following opportunity the stage comes, Goreng carries Molly with him, and they're brought down into floor 0, which is totally dull and discharge. Trimagasi seems to advise Goreng to fall off the stage since he isn't essential for the message, and together they watch the stage go up with Molly, trusting that she will show the victimizers over the truth.